here's your host, Alex Garrett.
And welcome inside to Terminello's Take for tonight. And, to kick off the show, I want to go back to Lou's comments on one Willis Reed, who he calls a friend, who was a captain for sure, and of course, one of the greatest Knicks of all times, one of the greatest players, I believe, in all time. And Lou Terminello shared his thoughts on Willis Reed not too long ago on this podcast, so that's how we'll start this week's Terminello's Take.
The great captain, Willis Reed, personal friend of mine, I said, did you ever think about not coming out that night because you were in such agony with your leg pain? And he said to me, if I didn't come out that night, Game 7, I would have had to live with that for the rest of my life. I would have left my teammates down, and that would have been a big disappointment for me for the rest of my life, no matter what I was coming out. And obviously he did. Obviously he was dragging his leg around. He had a couple of jump shots early, which paved the early lead for the Knicks, and they won Game 7 easily. He said, but it was never in my mind not to come out. And I believe Mahomes has that same kind of mentality.
Trey Turner showing that this is more than just and I know you want to talk about Eddie Diaz as well, but Trey Turner showing this is more than just about a baseball game. This is country pride in the country, and that Grand Slam sort of encapsulated the American spirit, did it not?
I would say it did. I mean, the one thing is I am not a fan of this tournament, as I have previously stated last week and the week before. This was even before the Diaz injury and the Altuve injury last night, or 2 nights ago. But obviously, once you're in the game and you're in that competition, the adrenaline flows, the competitive juices flow, the pride of wearing the uniform of your country flows, and you saw it with Trey Turner. You've seen it throughout the tournament, and the kid is having a great March, Mr. March.
I love that, Mr. March. I got to say this. You mentioned injuries, and this is why we will never see MLB players, despite the chunk of weeks it would take out of the regular season. But you'll never see them play in the gold medal game. That will go to or in the Olympics. That'll go to the kids, will it not?
I mean, unless there is a change in the schedule, it will go to either the college kids or players professionally who are not at the major league level, AAA, AA players, maybe mixed in with some college players. But I don't think you're going to see the major league schedule be interrupted. It could be. I don't think it's impossible in the middle of the season, but that wouldn't happen for a long time. And, getting back to my dislike of having this tournament, first of all, you're playing in March when players are getting ready to play in the regular season. They're not at their full physical peak. They're playing in high level and high profile and high pressure games. And, that's usually reserved for August, September, and the postseason. The fact that Diaz and Altuve have major injuries, the Diaz injury totally changes the Mets in 2023 for sure. I'm not saying that means they can't win, but he gave them the one advantage that no other major league team had. I mean, he was the best relief pitcher in baseball. He's had 2 of the great seasons of all time. His last year with Seattle, last year with the Mets. So he's irreplaceable. I'm sure the Mets will try to replace him somehow, some way, either by committee or obtain somebody else. Who they could obtain, I have no idea. But to lose somebody like Diaz in a post-game celebration, and apparently unconfirmed, he stepped on a teammate's foot, is just leaves a bad taste in my mouth. Yes, I know guys get hurt coming out of the shower. Lux, the Dodger second baseman, got hurt in an exhibition game, but he was getting ready for the season. Guys get hurt all the time, but why use the WBC situation? That's one more thing that gives them an opportunity to get hurt in, and it's not for their team. I mean, even Gavin Lux, when he got hurt, he was participating in a spring training game, getting ready for his team, whether it was practice, whether it was the game. So I just don't know what it's worth. Fox was crowing that the United States Great Britain game had a 45% increase from the game in 2017. They had 1 million people. 1 million people on a nationally televised baseball game is a horrendous number. So the fact that they went up to 45% means really nothing to me. Again, I love international competition. Nobody loves Olympic hockey with those great 6 teams that they usually have: Canada, the United States, Russia, the Czech Republic, Sweden, Finland. I love it. But I don't know. The way baseball has it with the mercy rule, the pitch count, I don't know. To me, it's like a gimmick. That's just my opinion.
Am I more excited about opening day than this? Honestly, yes. I just think real competition is always what we look forward to, is it not?
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to opening day. And the other thing is, just talking it from, just say, a Mets point of view, since we're talking about Diaz, the Mets have had 12 to 16 players gone for the last 3 or 4 weeks of spring training. And I think Alonso has only gotten like 11 at-bats, 11 or 12 at-bats in the tournament. So, you're losing your sharpness. Before the tournament, Alonso, and again, we'll just use him as an example, seemed to be in a good groove. I'm not saying that this is going to hurt his groove, but I just don't get it. I mean, like Brandon Nimmo said, the reason he's not playing, and he played in 2017 for Team Italy, I want to win the World Series. I want to get ready to win the World Series. So.
Well, I still think if you want to rep your country, you should have that choice. But I agree that a lot of these guys should be focused. All right. Well, let me ask you this, because the injury woes are adding up for both teams, and unlike football, where they're just trying to downscale the Pro Bowl to like nothing, right? So you can't really do that with baseball. I feel like you can't downscale it to flag baseball, right?
No, you can't. You cannot. That's for sure. You cannot. That's really the beauty of baseball. Excuse me?
So what solution would you offer?
Well, I mean, there's really like I said, if you're talking about the World Baseball Classic, I just think it's in a bad time of the year when players are getting ready to play in a regular season. If they wanted to shut down for 3 weeks in the middle of August, the middle of July, okay, you want to give it a shot then, but teams are going to say, hey, my guy's putting on extra innings on his arm in the middle of a season. Do you want to do it after the postseason in November in a warm weather site like Miami, where you don't have to worry about weather, and have it all in one state, in one venue? Maybe. I don't know. Again, I just don't think it's that big a deal. I really don't. I just don't think baseball needs it.
We definitely are going to get to the bigger storylines, because obviously the Mets injury is huge. But I mean, come on, you're in the Garden State, and what your state just saw this weekend with FDU upsetting number 1 Purdue. Not the only Garden State team to do that, by the way. Rutgers did that, but on the regular season, this was way different in March Madness. But FDU and Princeton, I know Princeton's had some runs here, but what are your takeaways from both those teams?
Well, I was very proud of my alma mater, Fairleigh Dickinson University. They came ready to play. They weren't scared. They listened to their coach. They showed great quickness. They played hard. Obviously, they were the shortest team out of 363 Division I teams. That was well documented. And the fact that every time Purdue tried to make a run at them, they kept their poise. And when Purdue went ahead 46-41 in the second half, I thought Fairleigh Dickinson was done. But they kept their poise, and they were not intimidated by a bigger Purdue team, not intimidated by Zach Edey, 7'4", incredibly, took only one shot the last 13 minutes of the game. Fairleigh Dickinson, outplayed them, and Tobin Anderson and his staff outcoached Matt Painter and his staff. And now Matt Painter, the last 3 years, he's lost to a 13 seed, North Texas, a 15 seed, St. Peter's, a 16 seed, Fairleigh Dickinson. And Fairleigh Dickinson played very well last night against Florida Atlantic. Florida Atlantic was quicker than Purdue. And if Fairleigh Dickinson had a couple of layups, they were right at the rim, they might have beaten Madison Square Garden this week, getting ready to play Tennessee. But it was a great couple of games for Fairleigh Dickinson, who really has virtually no sports budget. But that's what makes the tournament great, and it was the highest rated game since the Turner Sports channels, TNT, TBS, or True TV, got involved with CBS televising the tournament, which started that in 2011. The highest rated game. Over just about 4.4 million people watched the game. It's the highest rated Turner Sports game. So the upset is what makes that first weekend great.
Well, and there were a few, and we could cover them, but I got to hone in on this. I cannot let you go without asking you this. Let this interview go on without asking you this. FDU alumnus, what did you major in, and did you like your time at Fairleigh Dickinson? And were you in the athletic department as well?
Unfortunately, I wasn't in the athletic department. I should have been, but that's my mistake. I enjoyed my time at Fairleigh Dickinson. I majored in history, and I minored in journalism. I did write for the school newspaper, and I had a great 4 years there.
Well, my tie to this is that Tobin was in the East Coast Conference, so he was obviously up against Queens College, my alma mater, for about 10 years, and I was in that little gym with St. Thomas Aquinas, and now he's elevated himself from that gym in Long Island all the way to this upset. It's pretty cool to see that ascent. And, I mean, a little-known name like that, now you're saying he's on the market for coaching. Is that right?
Well, today's been a crazy day in college basketball with Iona getting eliminated on Friday. Rick Pitino, who had been rumored even before Friday, officially became the coach of St. John's today, 6-year deal. And really, St. John's was the only job he would go to leaving Iona because he doesn't want to move anymore. He lives in Mamaroneck on the Wingfoot Golf Course, and he really wasn't going to go to Texas Tech, where he had been rumored, and even a late charge by Providence, which we'll get to in a second, to try to get him to go back to Providence. It was just too late. But what Rick Pitino becoming the coach of St. John's does, St. John's for nearly 25 years has been irrelevant in the New York, New Jersey metropolitan area. Their scores are barely mentioned on the morning sports updates. He automatically elevates the perception of St. John's University. He gives them instant credibility, and he will bring in big-time recruits that they didn't get in the past. And, he apparently wants more games at Madison Square Garden. I guess they play about 5 or 6, so I guess that might go up to 10. Who knows? He's not only a great recruiter, Alex, he's a great in-game coach, as good as there is in college basketball. He will turn that around immediately. He is a big-time difference-making coach. And remember, you got to have the talent always. But in college basketball, unlike the NBA, the coach is the star, especially the way college basketball is now, where guys don't stay for more than 2 years.
Well, I would say there's two major. Obviously, Mullen was a classic player for St. John's, but now you're going to have two classic coaches in Flushing. I mean, decades apart, but come on, it's got to bring Carnesecca feeling back to the arena with this hire. By the way, a couple of notes. Mike Repoli, I was reading, is looking to be the benefactor of the program now that Pitino has. And I believe I met Repoli at the Belmont stakes and at the Belmont Racetrack, so there's that. But Brian Shanley, the Reverend Brian Shanley, wow, what a throwback, because they're reconnecting like they did in Providence.
Well, when he became the president of St. John's last year, 18 months ago, whenever it was, he said that he wants to win a national championship while he's at St. John's. I thought he was crazy, the way St. John's was going. But now, what he just said might come true. Rick Pitino can win the national championship at St. John's. This is a huge, huge moment in the history of St. John's basketball. Huge. I can't underscore it enough how big this is for St. John's. It is earth-shaking in the Big East. It really is. The Big East ground is shaking tonight. That's for sure.
Right. I'll tell you what. And you know what's interesting is I was all up excited about an 8-0 start, and I mean I thought rightfully so. But then they go to Iowa State, they lose game number 9 or 8-1, and they didn't rebound from that. I felt like so maybe now. By the way, I'm thinking of years on these guys, right? So you'll have Curbelo, you'll have Posh Alexander in like his junior year, I believe, or senior year. I mean, these guys are sort of quote unquote veterans with a veteran coach. Now that's a winning combination, isn't it?
Well, it is, and Mike Anderson was a veteran coach, but Mike Anderson did have some talent. It wasn't that St. John's didn't have zero talent, but you're going to just see a difference with Pitino, and you're going to see some of the guys that comes to the Queen's University of New York, St. John's. I mean, he's the one wherever he's been. Look what he did for Iona. They were 35-6 in conference games. You think the next 3 years, hey, nothing against Iona or whoever's going to coach them, but I think it's going to be pretty difficult, whoever comes in, to go 35-6 in the MAC the next 3 years. I really do. He had to take the job.
They had a chance to get the Hurley brothers, one of them back in the day. It didn't happen. Now they get their household name of a coach and a winner at that. All right, I've got to say, you called something about a week ago on this podcast. What exactly did you call that actually happened?
Well, a week ago, we talked about some of these coaching changes, and I said that I got it from one of my Big East confidants that Ed Cooley, the coach of Providence College, was given a boatload of money in front of him, as the old saying goes, to come to Georgetown. And Cooley had been linked earlier in the year to go to Texas Tech, go to, believe it or not, even Kentucky if Coach Calipari was going to go to Texas, which was a rumor. I don't think it was any legs to that rumor when Chris Beard got let go because of that domestic abuse situation. But we said last week that Georgetown made a big play to get Ed Cooley, and today at around noon, he became the coach of Georgetown University. I'm a little surprised because I don't think Georgetown's a better job than Providence, but Georgetown apparently doubled the money, plus gave a significant amount of money for NIL, the name, imaging, and likeness. As you know, Georgetown the last couple of years has not only been terrible on the court, but nobody goes to their games. The students have given up. They play in an NBA and NHL arena. Very tough to do if you're not a good team. So you have 2,000 people in there. It's really empty, and they had to make a major move, and they did with Cooley, who did a great job at Providence, and we'll see what he's going to.
Side of this, because one of his mentors, John Thompson, he really, I believe he took that loss really hard. Now he gets to coach Georgetown. How interesting is that?
Well, there's a lot of crazy quirks that go along with that. But Georgetown was desperate. So they wanted a major coaching upgrade, and they got a major coaching upgrade in Cooley. He's an excellent head coach. As you know, as we both follow the Big East closely, Georgetown lost 29 consecutive Big East games. They had to do something, and they did. And we'll see what he does. He's a good recruiter. I saw that one of the number 23rd ranked shooting guard in the country decommitted from Providence. I don't know if that means he's going to go to Georgetown with Cooley or just open up to a whole bunch of colleges. But in Providence, you're the big dog. It's Providence College in Rhode Island and nobody else. But in D.C., in that area, you have the University of Maryland, you got the Commanders, you got the Nationals, you got the Wizards, you got the Capitals. So, you're sharing the spotlight. But again,
but what Georgetown has that none of those teams I don't think have is the prestige, and I think that's why Georgetown needed to make this change, because they were losing their prestige. I mean, they were 1-15 at one point, I think. How was that?
Yeah, no, they act. That's why they did this, Alex. They had to try to get back that history that John Thompson Sr. brought to them. I mean, they went to the Final Four 3 years in a row in the 80s.
And that Ewing brought as a player. I mean, people are not really, they're focused on it, but it's got to be hammered home that he made that program as a player, did he not?
Oh my God, without question. He's one of the 5 or 6 greatest players ever to play college basketball. He made Georgetown. He helped Georgetown bring players in because he was so great. The fact that they only won one of those 3 Final Fours, sometimes you shake your head because they were so good, and they came within an eyelash of winning all 3.
All right, well, this I would love to talk of March Madness, but as I said, there's madness elsewhere, and I would say at Ewing's former home, the Garden, his team, the Knicks. I mean, come on. You beat the Nuggets, and you look strong after that, and you look like you're ready for the playoffs. And, Brunson was back, and I think having a healthy start for him and a restart was so important for this team because he's their guy, right?
Well, he's been a difference maker for him. As I said to you before, he's better than I thought. The Knicks are playing with confidence, and they're going to get at least a 5 seed, so they won't have to play Philly, Boston, or Milwaukee in the first round, which would be tough for them. I couldn't see them beating one of those 3, and they're going to and then even in first round, and maybe they get to 4 and have home court against Cleveland. Cleveland's a very good team, and I'm not going to say here that the Knicks are going to win that series, but that's an easier series than playing Embiid, Harden, Tatum, Jaylen Brown, Antetokounmpo, and Middleton, and the Milwaukee Bucks. Any one of those 3 teams would be very hard for the Knicks to win 4 out of 7. But the Knicks are progressing well. I mean, they started out, the first 2 months they were under 500. And they've been something like 31-17 since then, 30-17. Very, so that's a good stretch of games. I think, I think that they'll be competitive for sure in that first round. I think they might even win it. I think it's a toss-up against the Cavaliers.
Well, that's why I have you on, because I've got so many moving parts. I don't follow the intricacies as closely as you do. That's why I have you on every week to give Terminello's take, and I love when you do. In the Nets, I mean, they had a rough loss last night, but they have resurrected themselves, as we talked about. The question is, do they have the power, without their big names, to power themselves through the NBA, playoffs? I don't know if they do, but maybe you feel differently.
No, I don't feel differently. I really don't. I mean, I think they've done a good job of getting players with their backs to the wall, Sean Marks' back to the wall, so late before the trade deadline, and trading Irving, which they obviously tried to do once he had that last second trade me request. I don't think they intended on trading Durant, but once he requested, not demanded, to be traded, and they got a boatload back. But again, just even with the Knicks, as well as Knicks have been playing, to get to that next level, you need mercurial superstar or superstars. The Nets had two, even if they still had one, they could. I think the Nets are going to drop, get that sixth spot, so they might avoid the play-in, or they're going to drop into the play-in tournament. They're just too small. They're a team with small forwards. Denver pounded them yesterday, and that's hard to do. So I think for the Nets, they just have to see where they end up, try to win as many games as they can, regroup at the end of this year in the off season. They have a lot of pieces to move. They will not go into next season with this roster. As a matter of fact, and this is just me speaking, the only two that I would deem untouchable would be Mikal Bridges, who's obviously a very, very good player, has a chance to be a star. I don't think superstar, and he's been great for the Nets. And Nicholas Claxton, who gets better and better and better. Great shot blocker and runs the floor well. Has improved his offensive game. So unlike the Knicks, who I think are going to be better and get better the rest of the year, Thibodeau's done a good job coaching them. Josh Hart was a big addition to complement their team. They've gotten better. Mitchell Robinson and Hartenstein are rugged players. They have a lot of parts. They really do. Quickly is improving.
I got to ask you about this because you just mentioned the playing tournament, and I'm reminded that you've been following sports and love of sports for so many years. I feel like you have to do some adapting and understanding that these changes to these leagues are happening, and you may not like them, but I'm sure there's some adapting you got to do as a long time, I'd say, purist of these sports that frustrates you, but also like, well, I guess we have to deal with what we deal with, right?
Well, I mean, obviously, we're not going to change it. I'm not going to change it. You're not going to change it. But the play-in tournament is obviously another money grab as far as you can have another round, a mini round on ESPN or Turner. But again, does a 10th place team in the conference really deserve to be in the playoffs? But they've made it where if you finish 7th or 8th, you just have to win one game. If you finish 9th or 10th, you got to win 2. So it's made for a little bit interesting. But again, do I think a 10th place team should be in the playoffs? I don't. Or a 9th place team. 8th place team is okay. Maybe even that's stretching it too far. But yeah, we'll see. I mean, we're not going to change it. I don't think there should be 7 major league teams making the playoffs in baseball. I really don't think there should be 7 teams in the playoffs in football. I mean, that first weekend really isn't good. But that's
well, and I know you're thinking they're going to expand this thing to where the point of the night before President's Day is the Super Bowl. That's very interesting foresight. Do you really think that could happen?
I do, but I think what they'll do is, I'm not sure they're going to add another playoff team. I think what they'll do is they're going to add another regular season game and probably add another bye week, and that'll push it back 1 week so the game could be played on President's Day Sunday, President's Day weekend. I think it's going to happen.
That's crazy. And you also, well, we got to see in the next week or so how this dramatic shift of 45 interleague games impacts baseball. We could just bounce around all over about all the changes we're seeing right before our eyes, can't we?
Yeah, well, it's one of the rule changes that I don't like. It's not a rule change. One of the changes that they implemented, I don't like all those interleague games. Personally, I think it should really only be 6. Here in New York we have Mets-Yankees. Now that that's been around since 1997, you can't, in my opinion, you can't let that go away. But they should play 3 home, 3 away. Same thing with Cubs and White Sox, Angels and Dodgers. And I know that not everybody has a natural rival. Then one of them gets a designated rival. This should just be 6. Really, the Mets playing the Kansas City Royals or the Cleveland Indians, okay. What does it really mean? I mean, I'd rather see the Mets play National League teams. But this, as I said before, this is a first step, and I could be wrong. Nobody's told me this. I could be wrong. This is the first step to major radical realignment, which in the late 90s, Bud Selig talked about, but hasn't been talked about lately. But I have a feeling behind the scenes, that's what they're talking about. I think that's why they forced these 46 interleague games upon us.
All right. Well, it's about time for that culture shock of the week, and I gotta say, back to the tournament. How is Alabama allowed to participate in March Madness with like another player involved with this shooting? I don't know if you've been following this, but it seems like there's a lot of involvement of current Alabama players in what was a drive-by shooting, I believe, with a former Alabama player. And I just think, if you're involved with this, why is the whole – why – you may not say, well, don't punish the whole team, but if these coaches knew, then do it. They do it to Paterno. Like, they kick them out of the tournament, in my view.
Well, or at least make sure the player isn't playing, and he might be the number 1 player in the draft, Brandon Miller, and he brought a gun, apparently, allegedly, to one of his former teammates, this kid Miles. There was some kind of shooting. Miles' girlfriend was killed, and it's a terrible situation. I mean, I think Alabama, Nate Oates, the coach of Alabama, handled it poorly, and
he was making jokes about it, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was. He didn't, and he apologized. It's just not good. Not good. I mean, he just looks he looks like a fool. But he's a good coach. He is a good coach, and Brandon Miller is a 20-year-old immature basketball player. But again, when you were 20, when I was 20, if one of our friends said, "Bring me my gun," I don't think we would do that.
No, that's not immature. That's just criminal. But that's just me. Hey,
But again, Alex, excuse me. He's a great player. He was the SEC Rookie of the Year. He was the SEC Player of the Year. He's a former McDonald's All-American, and apparently he's going to be drafted 1, 2, 3 in the NBA draft. So he won't even be at Alabama next year. That's another problem in college basketball. But
now, if you notice, we've not talking about Aaron Rodgers because there's really nothing to talk about at the moment. He's not a Jet. He may say he wants to be, but apparently the Jets are screwing up the trade demands. I mean, what is this a Jet drop of is this a fumble or what's going on?
It's not a Jet. It's not a Jet fumble. The Jets obviously know that Rodgers has publicly stated that he wants to play for them. The Packers want 2 number 1s. That's not going to happen. I think also the Packers want to wait as long as they can because the $59 million, if he's traded before June 1st, hits their cap this year. They could split it up if he's between this year and next year if he's traded after June 1st. But I think he's going to be traded before then. I think they've asked the Jets to flip picks. The Jets picked 13, the Packers picked 15. To flip the picks, because from what I heard from one of the people in the Jets organization a couple of days ago, that there's a good chance the Jets might trade that 13th pick down to get multiple picks, and I don't know what that is. A low one and a two, 3 2s, something along those lines. If they don't get Aaron Rodgers done, I don't know where they're going to go. Yeah, I know there was a story in the Post today that they have a backup plan. Matthew Stafford. I don't know. Matthew Stafford has a lot of injury baggage on him. Yes, 2 years ago he was spectacular. They won the Super Bowl, but I don't know. And I also heard that if Rodgers only plays 1 year, the Jets want to give the Packers, or the Packers want this. And the Jets say, well, if he only plays 1 year, you're only getting, I don't know. I'm just using that as an example. You can only get a third pick, not a second pick. If he plays 2 years, maybe that number 3 pick becomes a number 2 pick and a number 4 pick, something along those lines. So there's a lot of manipulating going back and forth. But the thing is, the Packers don't want him, so if they don't trade him, they're still going to get hit with that cap hit. So, we'll see. I mean, some people say that the Jets have the advantage. Other people say that the Packers have the hammer. This is a tough one, but I think the Jets aren't going to panic and give him 2 number ones like they want. I mean, if he was 29 instead of 39, I would.
Well, the whole idea of, give them everything they want just to get Rodgers, I don't know, because it just is, it's a little risky to give up your number 1 picks. I agree there. Now, we're going from getting green to finish up with the blue shirts, because I have to ask you this. On Saturday, they looked like they were dominant, and they were 6-0. Then they come out the next night against Nashville and say, hey, we'll put one more up on the board, 7-0. 13 unanswered goals for the Rangers. That's the big part on Shesterkin too. But is this the line alignment that maybe Gallant uses in the playoffs, knowing the success he's having right now?
The Rangers are loaded from top to bottom. I think what you saw over the weekend, I know Nashville's not great, and I know Pittsburgh is, at the bottom of the playoff race, but they're still Pittsburgh. They're a veteran team. The Rangers took them apart the other night. The Rangers, I didn't even, last night, because I was watching the basketball, when I turned to see what was going on in the Rangers game, the Rangers were up 6-0, and I had to do a double take. The Rangers are loaded. As I've said to you before, they are legitimate, big-time Stanley Cup contenders from top to bottom. Yes, Boston is obviously is the best team in the regular season. Things change in the playoffs. It's not going to change so much for the Bruins because they're a veteran team, but the Rangers are right there. I mean, you got 3 powerhouses in the East: Boston, the Rangers, and I'm going to continue to put Tampa Bay in there because they've gone to the conference finals. They've gone to the Stanley Cup finals 3 years in a row, and they've won 2 of them. I think even though they might have a lot of wear and tear on their bodies because they've played 12 extra series the last 3 years, I still can't not put them in as one of the top 3 contenders. I think the Devils, on paper, have a Stanley Cup team, but once you get into the playoffs, and the Devils have only been in the playoffs once in the last 10 years, and this group really hasn't been in the playoffs because it was 3-4 years ago the only time they got in, they're going to have to learn I think, and I think it's going to be tough for them to advance. If they play the Rangers in the first round, I can't see – it wouldn't be a major upset, but I can't see the Rangers losing to the Devils. That's just me. The Devils, the one area where I'm still not 100% convinced is the Devils' goaltending. But they have a hell of a team, and I mean, they really do. But I don't think they're ready.
It's all Jack Hughes, but it's not all Jack Hughes. You got a good.
Well, it's not all Jack Hughes, because since you went to the game about a month and a half ago and put the jinx on the kid, he missed 4 games and he's only scored twice since he's come back.
No. So. Well, that's why I'm not going to the Garden anytime soon. All right. So,
you know I'm only kidding.
Note to leave everybody on their edge of their seats with for next week's Terminello Take. Mr. Anderson is suing possibly for termination. His termination. Did you see this?
Yes, I did. I don't know what he's suing for. He says he's been fired without cause. Mike Anderson, you've been a decent coach in your college basketball career. You were fired because you did not get the job done. Case closed. Well,
then that's the way to end it. Case closed on Terminello's Take and on the Mike Anderson era of St. John's. And that's kind of fun to say, not going to lie. That's actually really relieving to say. So we'll leave it there, and Terminello's Take will pick it up next week. And as we see every week, Lou, we never know what the sports world's going to gift us with, right?
That's why we love sports. The Fairleigh Dickinson Purdue game is why we love sports, because you don't know what's going to happen. That's what makes sports exhilarating.
In the river last year after I think it was beating Alabama. I mean, there are moments in college sports that are really tugging at our hearts, semester in and semester out. Forget about year in and year out, semester in and semester out.
Yeah, you're right.
So with that, thank you, Lou, as always. And, hey, we will talk to you soon.
Thank you for having me, Alex. I appreciate it. You know that.
And this has been Terminello's Take. And he might be back this week if there's a deal with Rogers. We'll have to see what goes on there for Aaron and the new A-Rod coming to town possibly, right?
Be exciting. I mean, he will make it exciting. He will do, and not obviously he's not a young man, but he will do for the Jets what Rick Pitino's going to do for St. John's. You're going to see next year the Jets play Philadelphia, Dallas, Kansas City. All those 1 o'clock games that the Jets have been playing because they haven't been a good team, they're going to be playing Dallas on Thanksgiving, I bet. They're going to be playing Kansas City on a Monday night. They'll be playing Philadelphia on a Sunday night or a Thursday night. They'll be playing Buffalo in one of those primetime slots, the 4:30 game on CBS. It's going to be a whole different ball game if Aaron Rodgers comes. If he doesn't, it'll be just like it always is.
Well, let's hope it's not same old. But for now, Lou, thanks so much. Terminello's Take for the week of March 20th.